Funny, there are three of us, right? And two of us really love to talk, and I'm the third one. And here I am.
I don't like to talk, to be honest with you. I just have to because those two don't. Hence why you get 90% of me on the podcast. Do you know what? When our producer said we got a very special guest on from Canada, I was really, really excited. And can you imagine my disappointment when it wasn't William Shatner?
Yeah. Very funny.
That's a nice welcome.
We also have Sion Dion.
Yeah, that is true. And thank God it wasn't her.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we wouldn't have opened the door, would we?
So my background is I'm English. I grew up near Southampton at a place called Winchester. I supported that team for a number of years, I think from the age of 12. Was an away supporter with them, still on the terraces. I'm an engineer. I'm lucky enough to have a PhD in electronics. Actually, I always joke to my children that I made rocket ships, which is true. I worked in Canada for an organisation that worked for the Canadian Space Agency and European Space Agency.
Yeah, I did see that. Electronic Systems Engineering, I've got written in front of me.
That's very good. You're very well. This is a very professional broadcast.
Yeah, well, it's the first time
prepared.
for everything.
That's why we've got him.
That's why you got him.
We did get our people to look into your background before we let you in the studio, you know.
That's fantastic. So I was an engineer. At some point I became an entrepreneur. I've run and owned a number of businesses in wide-ranging things, everything from transportation to internet to investment funds. Brandy and I had a crazy idea one day. I said, why don't we find a football club that is for sale and buy it? And we looked at several, and we settled on Peterborough because of Darragh. And the reason for that was that we wanted someone to work with who had a lot of knowledge of the game and the infrastructure and how to run a football club.
Because you're a turnaround specialist, aren't you?
That's correct. Yes, but I mean,
Did you see potential?
I didn't see this as a turnaround. I mean, I've done a number of turnarounds. Most of those have been tech turnarounds. Some, not always, but most of them. And it was just a really interesting opportunity. I mean, I love football, so what better business to be involved? And we're all fans, but it is a business. I mean, you earlier on you were saying you're going to be there at 3:00. Well, my day starts at 11 tomorrow with some events, and then I've got a meeting on finance with our CFO. You do
have to view it as a business, don't you? Because as a fan, I don't view it as a business. As a fan, I want the best players, the best stadium, the best meat pies. You know, I want everything.
And how are our meat pies? Are they good?
They're lovely.
They're lovely.
We don't do product placement in this show, but you know what
Mrs. does. She moans every time there's no veggie options in the stand.
Well, from tomorrow there is an option.
Well, okay. She's not into football, but she said, "Can you ask him if he can sort of veggie option?" There you go.
Yes, there you go. I mean, we've even put in extra facilities in London Road. You've probably seen them, just to allow people to purchase product quicker.
You can't throw money at a project, at any project, because you've got to balance the books at the end of the day. But you have at least made an effort, I think, to try. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about those sort of things. I go for other reasons. But for a lot of other people, that it is important.
And that's great. And remember, we're custodians for the club. We want the club to be here when we're not here. So we have a duty to make sure it's a sustainable business. We don't want to be in a financial distress situation like other clubs have been in. Our expectation is to get promoted. Another expectation is to grow the business side of Peterborough United so that it becomes more of a sustainable club, and to have one player graduate into the first team from our youth academy. I think the start was a surprise. We certainly weren't expecting that. It was a pleasant surprise. And it's been a roller coaster. I think what surprised me is when I became an owner, I immediately fell out of love with Southampton. It was like, okay, that was another part of my life that is I
was interested to ask
no
you
longer
that,
applicable. And I remember one, I think it was Sunday or a Monday, saying, "Oh, Southampton played 2 days ago. I wonder what the score was." And before I became an owner of Peterborough, I would have watched the game in some shape or form.
Yeah.
So was it like an instant switch of like passion then?
I don't know if it was instant, but it was very, very, very quickly. It's I don't know if it's a surprise, but it's certainly been a delight to work with many of the people at the club. We've seen them step up, and I know we're going to talk about the schools initiative in a minute. But that's just been fantastic the way that's been implemented, and it's been delightful to work with Darragh and Randy. We're all very different characters, and I think you need different characters and different skill sets to have a very successful team.
Darragh described the trio as like you're the ice age of the trio, if you like. He said, "Who calls down two hotheads?" How do you find it working within Darragh and Randy?
Interesting at times, but I mean, I think that would be a fair reflection of reality. I'm used to Randy. I've worked with him for
it's quite fiery as well
for a number of years, so I'm used to managing him, if you like. But it is like having two hothead players on the team, and I have to be the captain and say, just relax.
You're like
a little bit.
You're like the Peter Taylor to his Cloughie type thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I really enjoy working with them both. I'm not sure I would change one thing about it, because if you change people, you take away some edge or some attribute, right? So I don't think that's a question I can really answer.
I would change a lot about you two, by the way.
That shows you a lot about you yourself.
In fact, everything.
Nice.
Actually, if there's one thing I would change about Randy, is I would make sure that he doesn't miss flights.
Okay.
Because that is something he does on many occasions.
Punctuality, then.
Just missing flights. I mean, he misses flights like some people miss a taxi or something, or a train.
They don't hold them back for him, then.
They don't. But it always seems to work out for him, no matter what. No.
Shut that down. There you are, Daz.
No, there's absolutely no possibility of that. Well, I think firstly, in an ideal world, we'd prefer to stay where we are at London Road. And the reason for that is it's an historic site, and in theory, it's an easier redevelopment than building a new ground. Notwithstanding that, we have to be pragmatic. It'll come down to a commercial decision. Is it cheaper to build a new ground and new facility and all the extra components we would like in that facility? Or is it cheaper and possible to renovate the one we're in now?
I think as fans, we'd all prefer to stay, wouldn't we?
Yeah. We actually had a discussion that in the event that we do move, we would put in yellow seats in a certain section, so you'll be happy with that.
Okay.
We can keep our name.
We can keep our name. We don't have to change it. That is brilliant.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
For what reasoning?
History. I asked why the yellow seats were there, and they said, well, we ran out of seats. And I said, well, that's an interesting story. Let's do it again. But, let's deliberately set up a little section of yellow seats.
That'd be brilliant.
We've officially made our mark on Peterborough history
you have.
now.
Congratulations. So we've asked for a dispensation in the event that we are promoted, which obviously we'll hope we are. And we don't have an answer yet. I think the EFL is waiting until an outcome is reached in our current league. So we hope so, but obviously we don't control that outcome. I think we're looking at all possibilities at the moment. It's really about maximising the number of fans that we can host.
Yeah, because I think if we was to get to the Championship, the motor point stand would probably go to the away fans, wouldn't it, naturally?
I think that would be a likely outcome. I think certainly we're working really hard to increase the average attendance. Currently, we're tracking at about 200 more season tickets for the upcoming season than the previous season, and there's still plenty of selling time in our window. So we hope we're going to get to 250, maybe 300 extra season ticket holders. And if you imagine if you can add those every year. 10 years' time, you've got 3,000 extra season ticket holders.
Just as a follow-up question to that, this is Ian, this is Matthew's dad, actually. How do we get those people who walk around the city in Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United, Barcelona shirts and some into the Posh? How do we get the people who don't support? I mean, it's a big city. It's 27th largest city in the country. It is a big place now, and it's expanding massively. How do we get the people through the turnstiles? Because you have to remember, a lot of the people at London Road, the ABACs, are not from Peterborough. They're from Yaxley, St Neots, Wisbech. They're not from Peterborough. How do we get them in?
There is more than 850,000 people in Cambridgeshire. So there's a significant base here, and we don't really have any competitors. I'm sure Cambridge United would disagree with that, but
You're
I
correct,
wouldn't.
You're correct.
you wouldn't. So we're okay to say that on this
Definitely.
podcast. So there's a big population base here, and I think it starts in the community. So we have a big campaign in terms of the Rabbit and Peterborough United going to schools pretty much every day. We're putting on coaching sessions in those schools. So I think it starts with the kids.
It's doable, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. You can't do it overnight, can you? You can't make us into a Premiership or a Championship team overnight.
No, I think it's a big effort, and you have to be respectful that the other 23 teams in the league want exactly the same as you. We're not competing in a vacuum. We're competing against 23 other well, or maybe not so well, or maybe very well run clubs. I think it's been great. I think it's been a fantastic achievement by Phil and the Rabbit and the our academy and the foundation. It's great. When we first set a target of 75 schools to visit in the season, there was a bit of shock and awe in so much as people thought that's almost impossible. But they've done it. I think they're up to 83 as of yesterday, so they've actually surpassed that target. And I'm happy to announce that we've set a target of 150 for next year. So we're going to be in 150 schools.
I mean, that is a lot. Is it just primary schools or secondary
It's
schools?
mostly primary schools.
Yeah.
There are some secondary, but it's mostly primary schools.
I think with that age group of children, they're just excited to go for a day out, aren't they, somewhere? You know, and if you can hook them at that age, they probably will support you for the rest of their lives.
Probably the biggest achievement is we have 397 new season ticket holders for next season, and that's a combination of people that come from the schools initiative and the free under 12 initiative and the first timer initiative.
So the under 12 idea, that's opened the gate for them, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you get the adult buying it, and then there's an under 12, which is, I think it's completely free, is it?
That's completely free. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think it's a great
Free
idea.
season ticket, and provided you're with a paying adult or paying 18 to 18 plus. Well, I think at any level it's important. Whatever your club, it's very important. I think I read a statistic that in the playoff final last year, Coventry had 6 people coming out of 6 players that played some part or were in the squad out of their youth academy, which is an amazing achievement. And you know, it's no surprise I believe they're a Cat 2 academy, which is a goal that we have. I think it's absolutely vital. It's the fans generally love it when players have come out of the academy. They then tend to be more forgiving to those players, which is great. Those players tend to have more of an affinity to the club. As a fan, we all can imagine what it must feel like to play for your club in the town that you've grown up with. So I think that's important. I think commercially it's vital. There's not many things you can do in a football club. It's probably only free. You can grow the fan base, which we're trying to do from the schools initiative. You can find secondary business activities which don't impact the fans, which we're trying to do. We've had a big push this year to rent commercial space in our facilities that was previously unused. So there's a whole bunch of little companies now that call Peterborough United their home. We've doubled the number of concerts. We've signed a really big sponsorship deal with Western. Just is great, and the youth academy is probably the third one. So if you're generating players, A, you don't have to purchase players, and B, you have the possibility of selling those players, like we did with Leo, for example. I was really excited for the quarterfinal and really hoped we had won and gone on and then passed the semi-final stage and been at Wembley. So,
I think in fairness you were probably the only one then.
No,
well, remember I grew up in Southampton, so you wouldn't have wanted to go to Wembley. I mean,
that's what I mean. We wasn't interested in the earlier rounds, none of us. But when you get closer and closer, you start thinking about the Wembley day out, and you think, do you know what, it would be good.
I remember flying. I was flying from London back home on the Sunday of the cup final, and we were staying in a London hotel, and it was full of Sunderland and Portsmouth supporters. You didn't mention the toilets, and so internally, I'm known for that, which is, I guess, something.
What, do you clean them?
No, but introducing extra toilets in London Road. Obviously, we're limited to some extent by the fabric of the building we're in, so that there's not a lot that we can do to suddenly turn us into White Hart Lane or something like that. It's just not possible.
No.
But we are working wherever we can to improve the experiences. I left today a meeting about drinks, as we talked about earlier, that is going to be improved, and we're looking at the club as a whole in terms of what can we do. And if anybody has suggestions, I think they're always gratefully received in terms of what can you do to improve the match day experience. We're looking today about taking the fan zone inside in some way, perhaps having 2 fan zones on the concourses so that people can have that experience if it's raining. Tomorrow we host the ladies team at the game, which is fantastic. I'm actually hosting them in the directors' lounge, so really good. We're going to give them a dinner. I believe they're going to parade the cup. I think at half time, which I hope everyone applauds that achievement. I'm personally a big supporter of that team and the female program in general. So we've actually already started to invest in them. So one of the things that they need to go up to the next level is improved viewing areas for the games. So we've actually already signed off a little stand that's going to go on next to the 3G pitch that we currently have, so that they can qualify in the event that, in the event when it happens, and I'm sure it will happen, that we're promoted to our upper level. We certainly think so. Well, firstly, if he was to stay, that's obviously Darren's decision.
There we go. Oh,
Great. Thanks so much, guys.
no worries, Jason. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Right, that was a practice. Now we'll do the real.
That's just
A grateful recipient.
recipient.
Re-
That's the one.
Go on. I'm a grateful. You're gonna have to edit this well, Danny.
Spit it out.
I'm a grateful.